Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. Today I'm joined by horror filmmaking duo Social House Films, writer-director Aaron Fradkin and writer-star Victoria Fratz Fradkin. The duo's previous project, The Ballerina, amassed over 19 million views on YouTube and was featured on Season 7 of Bloody Bites TV. Social House Films was also highlighted as one of the leading independent horror filmmakers in GQ's article, The Most Exciting Horror Filmmaking is Happening on YouTube. Over six tumultuous I had them on the show today to discuss their latest film, BEEZEL. Over 6 tumultuous decades, 3 unwitting guests of a cursed New England home stumble upon a sinister secret dwelling beneath its floors. An eternal witch with an insatiable thirst for the souls of the living. BEEZEL is currently available on VOD. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Thank you both so much for taking the time to do this. Sorry about the delay in getting this started. I appreciate you hanging out and waiting.
No problem at all. It's nice to meet you.
You as well. The first thing I gotta ask about this movie is when I saw this come through, I was shocked that there wasn't already 10 movies called BEEZEL. Every once in a while, there's like this low-hanging fruit that exists in the world where you go, wait a minute, I know I've heard, oh my God, this doesn't exist already. How did this come to you just in this story, this title? Because it feels like something, just when I saw it, I was like, oh, I've seen that. Wait, no, I haven't seen this. So yeah, it's a very familiar name for some reason.
Well, Victoria made the biggest contribution to the title.
Well, thank you. I think that we were really trying to figure out the right name for BEEZEL. And I actually felt the same when we were crafting what her name would be. I was like, this has got to already be out there. So it's certainly a play on Beelzebub.
Yeah.
And then when you say it, it kind of feels kind of like crunchy and like sticky, like beetle. You know, you're just like, BEEZEL. It just felt right coming out. And then when I, kind of tie it all together with her lore, she's this ancient creature. She really lives more like in the foundation, in the subterranean. And you're like, all right, yeah, BEEZEL would live in the earth. So yeah, I would say that was BEEZEL's name genesis from my perspective.
And what about the story as a whole? Where did this come from? Because jumping into this, I had no idea what to expect when I was meeting the two of you. So this is just look like pleasant neighbors that could possibly live down the street from me. And I love that this is the underbelly of what's happening in the house down the street from me.
Right.
Well, how much time do you have? It started really in 1994. I moved to the house that we shot in. So this is my childhood home.
Yes.
And I moved in there, obviously, with my parents. I was 6 years old. And I remember the first night was absolutely terrifying, especially for such a young kid. My bedroom is right above the basement, where there's this giant old loud boiler with pipes that lead into a crawl space, which extends the entire house length of the house. And I was all alone in the front of the house. My parents were all the way the hell back.
It's a very long house.
And, I just remember being a little terrified by that. You could even ask my parents, I would always ask when they would tuck me in, where are you going to be in this house? And I would, like I said, I would always hear these noises. I would always keep my door somewhat cracked open and just stare into like the dark black void of the hallway that was illuminated by like a little nightlight that my mom got. And so when writing this, it was very easy to draw from all of those childhood memories growing up in this haunted house.
You're a horror film
and
director.
Yeah, that's probably why I chose to make horror movies now, is because that's where I grew up. So,
but the funny thing is, when I was invited to go to his family house like years ago, and the first time I walked in there, I was like, oh, so we've never talked about the fact that you have a haunted house. Like that's, I was like, we haven't talked about this yet. And they were like, I think very desensitized. They were like, what do you mean? And I was like, no. There's no fooling me. I felt a cold spot there. It's a cold spot there. There's noises all night. I know it's haunted.
My mom only just admitted to me recently that she had fears walking to the back of the house. She was scared to go into the basement where the laundry was.
Oh my God. Yeah. So in writing it, we just drew the house really gave it to us. I think the house in a dark Gothic way wanted us to tell the story. And so we were really familiar with the house, him more so than me. But yeah, it just really came naturally because we got to know the house so well.
Sure.
That's incredible. So at what point did you decide to go from that kid at the end of this long, dark hallway looking down with just like one piece of light at the end and just decide to completely embrace that darkness and just go into this world. Because most of us would want to turn on those lights and just leave them on for the rest of our lives. You decided to dwell there.
It was probably a solid decade later where I just picked up a camera, and the first movie I ever made was a horror comedy mockumentary about a French Canadian filmmaker who wanted to make a zombie movie about love and life. And I made this, I remember, in high school, and that was sort of the start of my dark and somewhat comedic journey.
So, okay, talk about the opening of this film, because you have a really big swing here. Two things you can do that can test an audience and their ability to hang out with you for an hour and a half, an hour and 20 minutes in your case here, would be put an animal in peril or put a child in peril. And those two things it's a bold swing to take. And you clearly, you're not afraid of pushing buttons with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The opening, let's see. Trying to think about the genesis of the opening. I knew that Mr. Weems had to have he needed for a reason to be sunken into guilt,
Right.
This guilt and depression. And what is something that can absolutely haunt you for your entire life? I mean, many things, I guess, but something 100% is a trauma to, a loved one, especially your own flesh and blood. So that felt like the right direction to go. And then also, I mean, just seeing this like sweet, cute, red-haired kid, and you're watching the home videos, and then it turns into this like sinister opening. It felt right. And as wrong as that feels to say, as a horror.
No, that makes perfect sense. And is that there's something that looks like it's a sink, but it's kind of is that a part of the home where that little trap door is?
Yeah,
and that
talking about the laundry
the murder
stream.
hole.
Yeah, the murder. There you go, the murder hole. Did this house have an actual murder hole in it?
That is a real laundry chute that we never used. It just lived there in the house, and I would, I'd have fun with that as a kid during the day with friends, but then also at night when I'm by myself, I would just keep those cabinets closed.
It was so creepy. It's creepy.
Well, I don't know what you had to do it's horrifying just to think of that. I couldn't imagine walking into a home, seeing that and saying, oh yeah, this is the one. We're going to pack up the kids. This is the one we're going to move into.
Don't change a thing.
Well,
Keep
that
it as
that actually just happened the end of last year. So my parents finally sold the house end of last year. Part of why we even wrapped shooting when we did last year. And the couple that bought the home now call it the murder house. That's how it's known in the neighborhood, because after shooting, we left blood stains in the basement.
Oh, on the floor where you had all that. So that was actual stains there. Okay, got it.
There is. And then we left some blood stains on the wall in one of the bedrooms.
I'm sure they painted that.
I hope not, but
I would like to just go on record as a producer here. I'm very proud of leaving every location 100% better, or as I found it, if not better. So this is the only blemish on my record, that the blood would not come off of the floor, but the new owners love it. So at least I think they love it.
Is the house just in that way telling you what it should have looked like the whole time?
Yes,
exactly.
It belongs here.
And you said they saw some blood stains on the floor before we even got there.
Well, I was there were certain questionable stains in the basement, like that big splatter against the stone wall that literally no one talked about. But we all saw it. And so it was just like, why? You can even see it in the movie, and that we didn't do that. It's just there. And I was always like, what is that about? I don't know, I've got a movie to make. I'm too busy. I can't figure out what happened on that wall.
So then, I mean, they held onto the house for the exact amount of time it took you to make and finish this film. Just, I guess, sounds like that's pushed you through the ending of this movie to finally stop shooting. How did was there something where you're trying to get them to hold off on listing the house so that you could finish, or was this? Do you feel like, because I feel like you have a really tight film here where it doesn't feel like there's anything extraneous here. It feels like the perfect length for what it should be.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, there was the time that the realtor wanted to come, but we were like,
that's true.
You do not want to come.
It was, it all worked out very serendipitously. My parents told me that we had to finish shooting by, I think it was like the end of March, just because there was going to be a realtor coming and they were going to be showing it to people. there was really only one day, like Victoria just said, that we had to reschedule a showing. That was really the only thing.
And
But yeah, my
they
parents were
did
very
not want to come
cooperative.
that
No, they did not
day.
want to come
No,
that
it
day.
was like full horror that day. I was like, this is not the best look for the realtor for the showing. Like, just wait a day or two. It's fine.
See, you
Yeah.
find the right buyer though. If I were to show up and there was a movie being shot there and there's blood everywhere, and as long as you clean it up, I'm in. I love this story. I'd be excited for
Yeah.
that. But that's just, I'm probably one of few in that sense. So, can you talk a little bit about the casting of the film? Because Bob specifically, wow, he really swings for the fences here, and I think it's just a really incredible performance that he's just chewing this thing up. And but there's also real humanity here, which is tough to pull off. That he goes back and forth between these really big moments and really small interior stuff. Also,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear you say that because in the writing of Mr. Weems, which is Bob's character, he's wonderful on the page, very exciting in your mind. And then you're thinking, I also have limitations. I'm not Paramount Studios yet, but I need to cast my net, literally cast as locally as possible. Hopefully I have some bandwidth to go out there. Bob was an absolute gem to find, and he works in the Boston and New York area. We were shooting in Western Mass. He was, available for that amount of travel. And I mean, I'm telling you, once we saw his tape, it was like, this is the guy. This is the guy. His eyes are like hypnotic. I can't not look at him, and he's got it. He understands this character very, very well. So
yeah, it's very important, when we're casting for horror and comedy, you don't necessarily want to cast someone who is so like by the book creepy, or if you're making a comedy, you don't necessarily want to just cast like someone who is funny. I think it's good to find a real talented dramatic actor that can bring truth to the character to make it so much more real. And it's that realism that makes it even more icky, and Bob really just brought it. He was so genuine in everything that he did. And when we first saw his audition tape, it really just blew us away. We were like, this guy is Mr. Weems.
the two of them too, LeJohn, who plays the Apollo character opposite Mr. Weems, they were just
they're great together
on the day, and they worked so well together. They instantly had that chemistry on set that you look for, and we felt very, very lucky. So they were both amazing gems to find. I hope to work with them again, and yeah, loved it.
Well, they're both really, really wonderful. And it's something that I started looking them up both after watching this, because I swear I've seen them in something else before, because it just feels like this can't just be this talented of an actor that I haven't seen. Why hasn't everybody else figured this out yet? One of those moments that you have like, shit, kind of like the title BEEZEL. It's one of those things. It's there. And there's just what a wonderful discovery in both of these actors. Because if that chemistry doesn't work, that tension between these two characters and their relationship that's constantly changing exactly what it is, the movie doesn't work really. I mean, you have great prosthetic effects here. It's the setting for the house is mentioned. It's doing some heavy lifting here, but really if the performances aren't on, this movie doesn't work at all.
Yeah, agreed. Everything really hangs on certainly the cast. The house itself becomes sort of a cast member in that way as well. And yeah, indie films, for them to like you say, to work, have all these pieces, you have to have that element of good quality work, but also like a little bit of luck. And we got, I don't want to be, I think that we did good quality work, but I also noticed that we got lucky with our amazing cast. Everybody was really great.
Yeah, we almost lost John. Not
Bob,
John. We almost lost Bob to Law and Order. So we got very lucky.
Yeah. Law and Order was about to have an angry fan, but then they didn't.
Bob was literally shooting an episode of Law and Order in New York, and then had to just drive up to start shooting our film the very next day.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, I guess, when you're shooting in that area, there's always the chance that you're going to lose somebody to Law and Order if it's shooting like within 300 miles of New York, that you're going to lose somebody to it. So
every actor's done it at one point.
You have to. It's like a rite of passage at this point, I think. At least that's it's what you see on everybody's resume at this point. So how did your parents react to this one? What did they think of it?
My mom actually refused to watch it until the house was
such a
sold.
compliment. It's a huge compliment.
I'm not even kidding. Obviously, I bring up my parents a lot in the making of this. Partly because they were so supportive in helping provide a location, which was huge, but also just they had genuinely positive reactions to the film. My mom did not watch it until the house was sold and she completely moved across the country. But the way that she even said she wasn't going to watch it was this very sweet, genuine, I love you, honey. I cannot watch this because I won't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Finally, she watched it when in California. The home was no longer in our family. And I think she lost one night of sleep, and then she said, "Yeah, this was really scary." And I'm really glad that I did not watch it until now.
While you were living there, I mean, that's kind of it's kind of like going to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind on, Devil's Monument or whatever the name of that structure is, or one of those things. You can go watch the movie in the place where it was filmed. I mean, my God, could you imagine, having a little screen outdoors and watching this in a summer afternoon, some early summer evening, watching this movie outside? It'd be phenomenal to watch it in this location.
Apparently there were even some people and a kid who lived nearby who was in the film that asked if BEEZEL was real.
Yeah, so that's been really fun. I think that's
good.
Awesome dividend as a storyteller and creator, that kind of the lore gets out. Even children don't know that it's a movie, so they're like, well, BEEZEL lives here, so then BEEZEL must be here, and then that's how the story kind of can take wings. I hope the neighborhood children all know BEEZEL lives in that house, because she does.
Well, they will, and it's one of those things where it becomes that neighborhood game of telephone, where there's just these little pieces of information that get passed along, and at some point somebody says, well, this story isn't quite interesting enough that a kid grew up here and made this movie about it, so let's just make it a real story that happened. They made a movie about it. There you go, done. And I don't know, that's one of those things that could give this movie legs for a really long time. But the other thing that really does is that it's a good movie, that you made something that is scary as hell, but still fun at the same time. It's that right kind that it does go hard at moments, but I always feel like the character stuff was more important than anything else here. It's not about the gags to me in this one, which is not always the case with horror films like this.
No, it means a lot that you say that. We try to spend most of our time writing a character piece with a good story, and only then do we sort of go back to page one and be like, okay, now how can we make this scary?
Right. How are you going to care what happens? How is it going to be scary if you don't feel for the threat of that character that you care about? So that's always really important. It's something we just talk about, even if it's obvious. It's like we just bring it up during writing sessions, and then. And yeah, I think it's so nice to hear that the characters had some range certainly for when you watched it, because that was the intention.
Well, to me, it's any horror film that I love. I take that back. There's lots of horror films I really do like and I love that really they are just a gimmick and they work. But the ones that like really get inside my skin, that really live in the back of my head for years, they're ones that you could remove the horror from them and you'd still have a story worth telling at the end.
Absolutely.
And really, this is a film about unpacking trauma from a past event. And that's what you could replace that witch in that basement with any number of things, and it would be a valid story worth telling. And I think that that's really why this thing works more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly it. That's how we started with the child, because that's the opening of the door for the rest of the story. So that's why we took that big chance at the opening.
You did, and I'm glad you did. It worked out, because there's a lot of films that I have not forgiven for doing that. As a dad, I have a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old. So there's a lot of times when you see that kind of stuff, like I would have loved this as a kid, but now as a parent, I can't do it. Watching A Kid in Peril when I was 13, 14 years old, loved it. You read it when you're, in sixth grade. It's a much different read when you have a sixth grader. It just it plays much different. So
was it a challenge for you to get through the first 10 minutes of our film then? Please say yes.
No, I watched it, but it's one of those things where, so I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is probably not going to go great. And it went worse than I thought it was going to. And then it was that moment of seeing Bob right after that made me feel like, okay, I'm in good hands here. Because it wasn't just about that shock. It was seeing what he was doing with that role that just made me want to hang out with this one and give it a shot. And I did enjoy the film, so I think you got something special here. Where and when can people see this? I think you're opening up on the 24th. That's when it's going to be available?
So we have a limited theatrical run on the 20th, and then
20th.
everywhere on VOD, video on demand, starting the 24th. You're absolutely right. So
September 24th.
Yes, exactly. So can't wait. I cannot wait for BEEZEL to be unleashed in the world. And yeah, it's so awesome to hear that how much sounds like you really liked it. So
it's an easy one to share. We're going right into spooky season right now. This is an easy one to share with folks because it's always this time of year that people are looking for something new that they haven't seen before, something that they can start putting in the annual rotation. And I think you got one here that's going to hang out for a while. So congratulations to you both.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm sorry that it took so much childhood trauma for you to get here, but thanks for unpacking it for us. We appreciate it.
It was all worth it.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.